I think in both of our experiences, there's things that we can intentionally implement in our lives and our routines during this holiday time that will alleviate some of that stress.
Yes, absolutely. When you think about coping mechanisms and how you cope, it's so important.
Welcome to the Women Rewriting the Rules podcast, a production by Gush Living. I'm your host, Sumi.
And I'm your host, Ashley. And this is where modern women gather to navigate our way through the maze of personal, financial, and emotional challenges,
create confidence in our independence,
take control of our finances,
and achieve ambitious goals, all while loving the life we're currently living.
But before we get into the content for today, we want to share something really exciting with you.
We are offering a really fun incentive for our day ones, our founding listeners, to help us get this content into the ears of other women who could benefit from it. So if you love this content and you show us your love, we want to pamper you by offering you our very first giveaway, which is a spa day at the Four Seasons Hotel.
So if you want a chance to win, there are just 3 simple steps you can take to get entered. First things first, go ahead and follow this podcast on your podcast app of choice. Next, you're going to write us a short review with a 5-star rating. And third, go ahead and share your review on your IG story and tag us at Gush Living. It's really that easy.
And once you tag us, we'll pick one lucky winner on January 1st. So get your reviews and shares in now. Let's start the show.
And speaking of glow ups, I am really excited to talk about the holiday season and how modern women can glow up in the times of Thanksgiving and Christmas when you're running around, you have so much that's going on, a lot of times feeling really overwhelmed. And there's a tendency, or can be a tendency, to lean into the holiday stress. But what if instead of doing that, you leaned into the holiday glow up?
Let's talk about it.
Absolutely. So I know that the holidays are stressful for a lot of people, but I was reading a really interesting study the other day from Mount Sinai Hospital, and they found that most women under the age of 50 are actually stressed out during the holidays about everything. It's not just family or finances, it's every category of the holidays you can think of, from having to buy presents to figuring out work schedules to parties and events that they have to go to, or a lot of times are actually the ones that are doing the emotional labor and sometimes physical labor of planning those parties as well and hosting and having people over. It's just a really stressful time.
It definitely is. And I think in both of our experiences, there's things that we can intentionally implement in our lives and our routines during this holiday time that will alleviate some of that stress.
Yes, absolutely. When you think about coping mechanisms and how you cope, it's so important. So the study was also saying that 61% of women who were part of the survey do exercise to cope. So I'm like, that's really good. That's healthy. That's positive.
Absolutely.
Around 54%.
Well, that's a good stat, 61%, more than the majority.
Okay. Yeah, like more than half. So that's good. Around 54% have conversations with girlfriends and they talk it out.
Super helpful.
You know, like you have to have your tribe, and sometimes just having someone who can lend an ear to listen can be really helpful and help those stress levels come down a little bit. But it made me super sad to read that 50% of women turn to either alcohol or drugs or some form of substance to cope, which
leads to a downward spiral.
Yeah. And it can be very easy to do that. Like I understand. So I'm curious, when we're thinking about what are some of the better ways to cope, are there any things that you do, Sumi, during the holidays to cope with stress?
Yeah, there definitely are. And you know what's funny? I had read this book called Brainwash by Doctors David and Austin Perlmutter. And, they were talking about stress and how stress actually affects our brains. Ooh. And this was really mind-blowing to me. So stress apparently enlarges the size of our amygdala, which is our lizard brain, and literally shrinks our prefrontal cortex, the part of our brain that's used to make like good decisions, what's called our adult brain. And so there are a lot of studies that have shown this now, that stress literally makes us have a larger lizard brain and a smaller adult brain, which then it makes sense with what you're saying in terms of, well, then that leads to more people making poor decisions and, just impulsively drinking too much or using substances and going down, paths that aren't necessarily helpful.
Yeah. I mean, it's like fight or flight when you're stressed out and that lizard brain is activated, going into that mode of, I've got to figure out what to do here. And I feel like my safety is at risk. And so I'm going to be fight or flight. I feel like the other thing that you can do in that is escape, which is to drink or maybe smoke a little Mary Jane or do
Right.
something where you just have an opportunity to have a break, what feels like a break from everyday life. But then when you're sober again, stress is still going to be there. It's not going anywhere. So it seems like a good thing to just have better ways to cope and things that you can do to reduce the stress in an easier way.
Yeah, this whole conversation just makes me want to go like, we need to empower ourselves and each other with better mechanisms. So let's talk about blowing up instead of following down into stress. How about that?
That sounds fabulous.
Okay, so I do have things that I do. I actually made a list of 7 personal habits that I try to like press the accelerator on, especially during this time because of these risks of the stress and downward spiral.
Listicle.
All right, a listicle. Okay, so the first thing is sleep. It sounds super basic, but making the intention to actually get 8 to 9 hours of sleep over this holiday season, that means, you might have to be more, effective during the day. You can't zone out in front of the TV. You can't maybe take as long with other things in your life. But if you could fit in 8 to 9 hours of sleep every night, it will drastically and dramatically change your life, speaking from personal experience and a ton of research.
I mean, so I have to admit, I'm super guilty of the scroll before I go to bed. And so I'll lay in bed with my phone and TikTok open. It's usually freaking TikTok. And I get in that habit of scrolling.
It feels like a relaxation mechanism.
It feels like relaxation.
And do you feel relaxed afterward?
No, I'm like, girl, you should have been asleep.
Yes.
Like that would have been such a better way to spend my time.
Yes. So I think we all can relate to that. So sleep is my first thing. The second thing is leaning into like really taking actually all of these 7 things are about exquisite self-care. So my second strategy is around taking that time in the morning to at least have 10 minutes of alone time to journal usually it's like with my hot coffee in my robe, really creating creating that cozy moment in the morning with myself and my journal and my, nice pen and really enjoying those simple pleasures.
Yeah, I love that. Like the tactical element and the smell of the coffee and coziness of the robe.
The slippers and
Yeah, it just gives you like a moment of softness, it sounds like.
Yeah, and joy.
Absolutely.
The third thing is, as I mentioned, if you guys listened to our first episode, I've started a pretty sacred meditation practice that's personal to me. And so during this time, especially, I try to not miss a day of meditation because that is one thing that really grounds me.
Yeah. And the consistency is so key.
Yeah.
Because it's like you build it up and then I'm sure like your body almost craves it.
Yes. And I realize I feel better, so much better on the days when I get that in,
I love it. Okay, let's hear number 4.
Okay. Or should we go to you? I just listed off my first 3.
Okay. I mean, like mine are a little untraditional.
Okay.
So for me, figuring out how I can glow up, be my best version of self during the holiday season. It's a lot more reflective, and I really take the opportunity to have a step back and look at my life in various areas to kind of get to the root of what makes me happy and what doesn't make me happy. So I have a method.
Mhm.
It's called the HMU method.
Okay, hit me up.
Kind of, sort of, not quite, but almost. It's almost as good as hit me up. It definitely doesn't have anything to do with booty calls. So it's the happy, meh, unhappy.
Ooh, okay.
Method.
So I'm imagining, okay, on a piece of paper, if you had like 3 rows, happy is the first row, meh is the second row, and then unhappy is the third row.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so I will set aside like a morning or an afternoon when I know I'll have time to be by myself, have some peace, and also get cozy. I think being cozy in your environment is really important. I love the coziness. But so I'll normally get cozy, have a good meal, a good snack. Your girl loves a snack. And I'll sit down and I'll look at like the major functional areas of my life. So I'll look at work, finances, how I'm spending my free time and my hobbies, and I'll look at everything that I'm doing and really be honest with myself about what makes me feel really happy, what makes me feel kind of meh, and what makes me feel absolutely unhappy. And in taking the time to just be honest with myself, even when it's uncomfortable to do so, and how I'm feeling about how I'm spending my time, it gives me permission in a way to get rid of the things that don't feel good.
Okay, so you list out things in your life during your reflection, whether it's people and relationships or events you've attended or plan to attend or work things as well, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And you put them in one of these 3 categories?
Like,
Okay.
and it could be anything. So it could be like one of my most recent ones that I've done sort of at the beginning of this holiday season. I made my list.
You already did it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. The minute October ends and
Ooh,
Halloween's over,
yes.
I'm that girl.
You're
I'm that girl that's like, give me some pumpkin spice, give me a little Christmas ornament.
Do you have Mariah Carey playing in your apartment all the time?
I don't all the time. I would say maybe 50% of the time. I used to set my ringtone during the holiday season when I was like younger. I would set my ringtone to All I Want for Christmas Is You.
All year long or just during?
No, like just for the holiday season. Just for the holiday season. Give me that and like all the romantic like Christmas rom-coms. Like the holidays have started for me. But so I had sat down at the beginning of November and made my list. And one of the things that made my like super unhappy list was doing laundry.
Okay, interesting.
Like,
so what are you going to do about it?
I'm going to outsource it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like I found, a service that will come pick up and do wash and fold. And also just a nuance for people that maybe aren't familiar with like LA life. A lot of apartments don't have a washer and dryer within the unit. And I happen to live in one of those kinds of apartments. So I'm like,
so outsourcing that is going to be a huge time and energy saver for you.
Massive time saver.
Yes.
And just also giving myself permission to clear that part of my brain that has to think about scheduling, doing my laundry and when I'm going to do it and when I have time to do it. Now I'll just schedule someone to come pick it up and do it for me. And giving myself permission for that. So yeah, when I figure out how I'm feeling about certain things in my life and whether it's happy, meh, or unhappy, anything that's unhappy, I give myself permission to immediately, instantaneously get rid of it.
Okay.
So sometimes that's not fun.
Right.
Sometimes that makes other people really also unhappy. But if it's making me unhappy, I shouldn't spend any more time doing it. And then for the things that feel a bit meh, I'll create a 90-day plan.
Okay.
So I'll commit to myself to have those things out of my life within 3 months.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that way, by the time I get to the end of January in the next year, my life should be full of happy things.
Okay.
And then for the things that do make me happy, I just look for ways that I can incorporate more of
And
that.
expand them.
You know?
I really love this. It might sound kind of cutthroat to somebody listening, and I think what I would share if you're thinking that right now is that, these are the types of things that most people can't bring themselves to do, right? Because it feels too difficult to cut people out of your life, right? Or even like some routines that you're so used to doing that feel like, no, I can't just stop going there or seeing that person. But I think to really prioritize living your best life and being where you're meant to be with the people you're meant to be with, you have to be cutthroat about your own happiness.
Well, if you're not cutthroat about your own happiness, who else is going to be?
That's a tweetable.
like literally
100%,
though, like if
100%.
you're not going to be your best advocate to stand up for yourself, to make sure that you're spending your time, it's your time, it belongs to you, on things that really make you happy, do you expect anyone else to care that much about the things that make you happy? Like,
And
you
what's
have
the
to be your best
point?
advocate.
What's the point?
Exactly. So yeah, so that's one of the things that I do. Yeah. And then the other thing that I do is I like list. I said earlier, I like a good listicle. I do a top 5 review, and top 5 being the top 5 people that I've spent the most time with throughout the year. So throughout the 10 months prior to the start of November, start of the holiday season, I look at who have I spent the most time with.
You're going to have to tell me where I land in that list. I hope it's not the H or the U. I hope it's not the U.
I mean, we're sitting here right now, so I would say you should feel pretty good.
I'm safe.
Yeah. Because if it were in the U of the HMU
it might be in the Met though. I might be like finding out my destiny.
I'm just going to get up and walk out as we're recording right now, and then you'll know. But yeah, I look at the top 5 people that I've spent the most time with throughout the year and really take time to assess the value of those relationships, how those relationships have made me feel. Do they feel somewhat reciprocal? Do I feel drained? Like, any emotion that I might be feeling around hanging out with those individuals, I assess it. And it's really important to me to have community and people that I spend my time with that are making me a better version of myself. And again, I think it can be easy to get into a rut of doing what's comfortable and doing what's familiar and sort of going with the flow that makes other people happy. But if you're not going to be your own best advocate, again, you'll end up wasting so much precious time in life. And we only have one life. So you should spend it with people that uplift you and make you feel good about yourself. So I'll look at that top 5, and I'm not as cutthroat with the top 5, but it's more of like rearrangement and realizing where maybe I'm super invested in some relationships that are maybe a bit one-sided, or maybe every time I go to hang out with that person, I feel a pit of anxiety in my stomach because of just whatever the dynamic of our relationship might be.
Okay.
And then
that's not a good sign.
No, it really isn't. And then I reassess. Do I need to talk to this person as much as I do? Should we be spending as much time together as we spend? And kind of go from there and deciding where I'll invest my time.
Okay. That sounds amazing. That sounds like beautiful ways to ensure your glow up.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a couple more in my list.
Okay. Let's hear them.
Okay. So my 4th strategy to have a glow up during this time is to make my appointments. You know, all those annoying medical and dental appointments that you keep putting off? And I'm the worst with this kind of thing. Like, I will, I mean, during the pandemic, I hadn't seen a dentist in 2 years. So
same.
This time of year, I make the calls, right? Because you usually have to book months in advance. So I'm like, all right, let me just put them all on my calendar for the next year. So I'll, schedule my teeth whitening and schedule my dental checkup and schedule my, gynecologist appointment and schedule my pap smear and schedule anything else that I feel like I need to do in like my mammogram, like the dental and medical world, which I haven't gotten a mammogram yet. But I was thinking, ooh, this is the year.
You haven't?
No.
Okay.
Have you?
I have. So breast
Okay.
cancer runs in my family.
Okay.
And so I started getting mammograms at a younger
Okay.
age. And yeah, it's not comfortable, but it is good to get that checkup and just know.
Peace of mind.
Yeah. And to make it a part of your routine. So I'm excited for you to get your
All
first
right.
mammogram.
I'll definitely share with you guys how that goes.
Yeah.
If you want to hear. No. So that's my step number or list number 4.
Okay.
And then the remaining 3 are around, really sort of similar to yours in terms of evaluating, okay, can I have, the top causes of stress. Ever since I read that book, Brainwash, I've been like thinking about this. And I'm like, okay, the top causes of stress are overworking, undersleeping, eating too much sugar and processed food, not moving our bodies enough. So I really lean into the next 2 in terms of like getting, again, my favorite word is exquisite care, exquisite self-care. And I think about how can I take exquisite care of myself? Sometimes even asking questions to yourself with words that light up certain parts of your brain that make you feel like, yes, helps to give yourself the answers that you need. So exquisite self-care is one of those words for me. And so I'll, really try to, because I know I'm going to be indulging in cookies and big meals and all the cakes and, and so in between those times, I try to focus on my nutrition, really dial that in, focus on making sure I'm getting in my workouts. And then lastly, really connecting deeply with people that I love. So taking that extra time and not rushing through, not having superficial conversations, but going deep. And which is something we are going to talk more about in a later episode for this season. But yeah, those are my 7 strategies.
I love them. And I feel like those are all things that are pretty easy to implement, at least to be mindful of. And sometimes that's the first start, is having awareness that we're coming to the close of the year and you want to end strong, finish with a bang, and maybe not follow some of the patterns or behaviors that just haven't served you in the past. And so I think all of the things that you shared are just really good things to have in the back of your mind, to start implementing, that you could do today if you wanted to.
Right. And it's sort of, I like this idea that this motivational speaker, Ed Milet, talks about in terms of it's separation season. Like, the competitive nature in me comes out. I'm like, okay, most people, quote unquote, most people, which isn't us, right? Because if you're listening to this podcast, you're not average. You're on a mission. You've got freaking audacious goals, right? But most people during this season just throw all of that to shit, right? And so that really motivates me. Like, I'm not gonna be like most people. I've really got to dial it in this season so that I can enjoy everything to the fullest.
Yes. And then you get to start the new year feeling so strong and on top of your game in a way that's even feminine. It's like resting in your femininity at the end of the year, taking really good care of yourself, being really cutthroat
about
around your energy, and your happiness. Taking the time to do that then allows you to sort of very softly move to the top of the pyramid at the beginning of the year so you can have an amazing start. And I think if you are listening right now, try to find at least one of these things. We threw a lot out there and each have very different approaches, but If one of the things that we mentioned stands out to you, whether it be around mindset or how you're practicing self-care or how you're making decisions and how you're spending your time, if you could just incorporate one of those things into your life, I think you would be on a wonderful path to have a glow up for 2023 and to start the new year with the right energy and the right attitude to go out and accomplish those audacious goals.
Love it. Here's to your glow up, guys.
Yes, we'll talk to you next time. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. And don't forget, we still have that really amazing incentive for anyone who's listening to this podcast right now, who is looking for a community with other like-minded women. We want to pamper you. And that's why you have an opportunity to win a spa day at the Four Seasons.
So how do you get entered in? 3 easy steps. First, make sure you're following this podcast on your podcast app. Press that little follow button. Then write us a short review with a 5-star rating. It really helps get the word out to other women who need this content. And then third, share that review. Share your review with us on your Instagram story, but be sure to tag us. It's at Gush Living.
We'll pick one lucky winner on January 1st, so go ahead and get entered right now.
And we'll see you next time.